Back here at the Oakland Alameda Coliseum, where the Kansas City Chiefs, surprisingly enough, leading the Oakland Raiders 7-6, and it hasn't been the Chiefs' offense. It was the 100-yard return of a pass interception by Tim Collier that has resulted in the only touchdown in this first half of play. Oakland has come up with 2 Earl-man field goals, and it's a 7-6 Kansas City lead at the half. And we're going to be talking now to the veteran linebacker of the Oakland Raiders, who's on the injured reserve list, actually, a 7th-year pro out of Bowling Green, Phil Villapiano. Phil, I know if you had your way, you'd like to be down there on that field.
You're not kidding, Bruce. It's it's that time of year when everybody's getting excited, and I got to sit up here every week and just kind of bite my fingernails and wait, wait for next week and wait for next week, and now I'm waiting for, I guess it looks like we're going to Miami, so that's what I'm getting excited about right now.
What is your playing status, Phil?
Well, I'm in injured reserve. The knee is fine. I got hurt so long ago. I got hurt the second game against Pittsburgh, and it's healed real well. And I think I could play if I wasn't on injured reserve.
Still, this Oakland Raider ball club in an unfamiliar role. They're going in as a wild card instead of, as they have for so many times, owned the AFC West.
Right, Bruce. I think we're the type of team where that really doesn't matter too much. Last year we won it all because we played every game at home, but I think we're a pretty good road team. It doesn't much matter to our team if we're home or away. We're kind of really happy and thankful we're in it. For a while there, it looked like it was just going to slip right away from us. Denver played such a good season. San Diego surprised us. You guys almost beat us the first time, and things just weren't going right for us. But luckily we got in, and I think we've got the playoff experience, and that we may be the first wild card team to never do it all.
That's right. You talked about the injuries, and certainly the injuries to Oakland has been primarily. Well, I just look at your secondary, how you've had to revamp that defensive secondary this year.
Yeah, our defense has been hit hard. It wasn't that bad earlier in the season because, we had so many games and we thought, hey, everybody will be healed up. But then as the season went along further, we lost Axton, we lost Charlie Phillips, who's a great when we go into our 5 and 6 defensive backs. He was probably our lead interceptor for that type of defense. But now we're down to a bunch of rookies. But as you notice, Lester Hayes is playing great football. We got Steve Jackson, who doesn't have much experience, but he's a pretty fine football player. And we've got a lot of experience at our linebackers, with Hendricks and Hall and Monty Johnson. Floyd Rice, I think, will be back next week. I think our linebackers can pick up some slack for the defensive backs. But I'm not looking so much at our defense. I think our offense is good enough to carry us.
Well, on that defense, of course, you were forced by injuries into that 3-4, and it's worked very well for you. Now, is that pretty much going to be the mode of the Oakland Raiders, staying with that 3-man with the four linebackers?
Right, I think it is, Bruce. Starting at Al Davis down to John Madden, down to all our coaches, we're a pretty superstitious club. And we won with it last year, and I think we're going to stick with it just for the reason we did win a Super Bowl with it. Even though it does work real well for us, the only problem we seemed to have last year was getting to the passer on third down. So if you notice on third down, we're putting in the extra lineman, which gives us a little more pass rush. And that seemed to be the only problem with it. As far as the 4 linebackers, we were really mixing it up well. We had a lot of teams off balance, and it seemed to work real good. And I think we're going to stick with it.
What your last defeat, the third defeat you had, was the L.A. Rams game, and I remember watching that on, I think it was Monday Night Television. What was the problem with the Oakland Raiders that particular night?
I think the first couple quarters we just weren't playing, Bruce. It was kind of weird. Kenny just threw a couple interceptions that weren't even close to our receivers. It was like right to the Rams. We had a couple fumbles. The defense wasn't stopping them the way they should. It's just like everything was going flat for us in the first half. The second half we came out, we played some pretty good football, and we seemed to have won the game there with 3 minutes to go. If we won it, it would have been a real steal from the Rams because they did outplay us. But I think it was good because we had a bunch of games in a row there that really didn't matter too much. And it was our first really like I call them money games or championship games, and it showed we really weren't ready. But last week we came back against Minnesota and we played a real good game. Solid offense, solid defense, solid special teams, the way you have to play in the playoffs. And this week here, we're not looking too good, but I think the guys may be thinking about next week a little too much. All in all, last week against Minnesota and against LA, I think they were just good preppers, and next week would really count.
Does a guy like Kenny Stabler need a quarter of a game like this to stay finely tuned, or can he sit out the whole game?
I think that the best place for Kenny is right on the sidelines. I hate to see him out there against the Chiefs at any time. One thing about whether you guys are winning or losing, it's always a physical game, and I hate to see Kenny out against you guys, out on the field. I mean, I'd rather see him on the sideline. And I think he's got enough class, and he knows what he has to do to get ready, and he'll be ready next week. He can take the week off.
Talking with Bill Villapiano, the veteran linebacker who is injured on the injured reserve list here of the Oakland Raiders at halftime, with the Chiefs leading the Raiders 7-6. You know, we look at the Oakland Raider offense, and there's a guy named Mark Van Egan who perhaps is going to finally get the ink he so richly deserves. A lot of people think of AFC running backs, and they talk about the Lydell Mitchells and so forth. And here's a guy that very quietly has just led the AFC in rushing.
It's amazing. He's been running well. I guess it's about his fourth year in the league. He's been running. Every year he runs well. He does a great job for us, and no one ever heard of him. And just like last year and this year, he's finally getting ink, and I'm glad you said it. I think he deserves everything he gets. I saw he got invited to the Pro Bowl, which is an excellent honor for him. He's the type of guy that you just love. He doesn't brag, and matter of fact, he's so modest you get mad at him sometimes. But he just gets out there week in and week out, does his job. He'll do it if he's injured, if he's not injured. And he's just the ideal fullback in my eyes, and I love to see him in that game because I know he's going to give 100% the whole afternoon.
Well, as a scouting report, and without giving away any trade secrets, if a team is to beat the Oakland Raiders, what do they have to do?
Well, I think to beat us, you're going to have to stop our offense. I think we have probably the best offense in the league. Well, naturally, when we're on, and I think that's what they got to do. They got to stop Kenny. They got to stop our runners. They got to stop our receivers. They got to stop our offensive line, which is, very hard to do. And I think that's what a team has to do. Our defense is going to play a nice, solid game no matter what. We're not great on defense this year. I don't think we'll dominate teams the way we did last year going down the stretch. But I think our offense is the key if somebody wants to beat us, and they got their hands full with that.
Bill, let's talk a little bit about the offseason. You're into youth counseling out here, I believe.
Well, I do a lot of things in the offseason. I like to mess around with the youth. I work for the bus company out here, and Otis Sistrunk and myself, we go around to a lot of the different schools, and we tell the kids, don't mess up the buses. And why we're telling them to do that, we usually give them a little pep talk, and we get out and mess around with them a bit. That's one of my jobs. I work a lot with the boys clubs, the Boy Scouts. I just do a lot of things like that. As far as me getting ahead, I work for a car dealership over here in San Leandro, and that seems like to be my future. I've got some good ties in there, and I'm looking forward to maybe having a dealership someday.
How long do you want to play, Phil?
Oh, I want to play forever. This is my game. A lot of guys, people start talking to them about what they're going to do in the off season and what they're going to do in the future, and they forget about what they're doing now. But I love what I'm doing now, and I'm going to play it as long as I can.
I know we watched a guy, a former teammate of yours last night up in Detroit, Marv Hubbard, playing with the Detroit Lions. Now, we think back to the great rivalries that Kansas City used to have with the Oakland Raiders. Marv Hubbard always figured into it.
Right, Marv had a way of doing it. I remember that year that they hung him back there. They had the big thing hanging down of Hubbard. Those were great games. I tell you, I miss them. And I miss that old feel you guys used to have with all the fans were about 6 feet from the sidelines, and we just got there and slug it out. That used to be a lot of fun. And I really root for Kansas City to get the team back, because that rivalry is too good to die. And I hope that they get it together again, and we can pack those stadiums and have those old battles.
If you were Al Davis, or if you could project to the draft, is there any need of the Oakland Raiders right now? What would looking ahead to the draft? Where would they start bringing people in?
I don't know, Bruce. I can't tell you, because every year I think one thing, and I don't mean 100% opposite happens. I mean 200% opposite happens. I think we need a defensive back, and we get a punter. I think we need a punter. We get a tackle. I don't know what Al is thinking. Everybody, we have a relatively young team for as good as we are, and that's great. I think possibly a wide receiver or defensive backs is what we need. We've got a couple of real fine rookie linebackers, and we've got a whole bunch of defensive linemen. So I think maybe a wide receiver, defensive back, but who knows? Al Davis is the only one who knows that.
Phil, we want to say it's been a real pleasure having you up here, and take care of yourself. We hope you're back in action for the playoffs.
Good, Bruce. I'd love to be, but next year I'll be ready.
Thank you. Okay. Linebacker Phil Villapiano guessing with us here at halftime as the Oakland Raiders trail the Kansas City Chiefs 7-6, and we'll be back after this timeout.